As a kid, I liked to play this little game known as Crzypengu. My favourite thing to do in the game, other than saying words that made this little orange box appear, was to play the ice fishing minigame. As I can't exactly play the game anymore, thanks Disney, I'm going to try and remake it. Ice fishing, that is, not the entire game. That'd be way too much effort for me. To spice things up a bit, I'm going to try and remake the entire game from memory, and I haven't played it for like 10 years, so this should be interesting. Let's start with some graphics. Here's a list of assets that I'll need to make, or at least the ones that I can remember. I'm surprised there's not more, and I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing, but either way, these assets shouldn't take me long to make. I'll start at the top of the list with the fish. I couldn't remember if the fish was gold or blue, so I just made both versions. I'm pretty sure there's multiple junk items, but the only one I can remember is the boot, so it'll have to do. Shark is just a big grey fish, which means I pretty much just copy and pasted it. The background and fishing rod were just simple shapes put together, however I did add a blue gradient to the water just to make it look a bit nicer. You might have noticed that I skipped over the penguin, and that's because, well, it looks like this. Yeah, it's not great, but I don't really know how to fix it, so we're going to pretend I'm good at art and move on. Now that the assets are done, let's get on with making the gameplay. I started by importing the background as well as the penguin and fishing rod into Godot. In the original game, I'm pretty sure the fishing line is drawn from the end of the rod to the position of the mouse. However, because I'm lazy, I've made a fishing line asset that I'm just going to move to the mouse's Y position. While playing the game it should look pretty much the same, however here's a better look of what is actually going on. This is also why I made the top of the fishing rod go out of the bounds of the game. Next we'll need to add the fish. I still don't know which one is the right one, but I think I'm going to go with the gold one because it looks better and stands out more against the background. Next we'll give them a script that allows them to move. We'll then spawn them off the screen to the left and set them a random Y position. Alright, so now we'll need to do a similar thing with the junk and shark spawning, but this time I'm going to be using a very advanced technique you probably won't understand called copy and paste. With all the spawning now in place and working, I needed to make the hook react to the objects. This was pretty boring, so I'll just give you a quick explanation of how I did it. I added a collision zone to the hook and all of the other objects. When the hook collided with any of the other objects, I'd check what object it was. If it was a fish, I'd remove the object instant and add a fish sprite to the end of the hook. If it was a boot or shark, I'd play this flash animation that I made to show that the line has been broken. I also made it so during the animation, the line movement will be disabled. The animation lasts for around 3 seconds before the game resumes as normal. While we're on the topic of collision zones, I also added one at the top here that I like to call the deposit zone. If a player enters this zone while they have a fish on their hook, the fish sprite will be hidden and the hook will be reset. I'll also update the fish counter, which I'm going to make right now. There we go. The game is pretty much done, I just need to add a way for the game to end. The problem is I can't remember how that's done in the original game. It's either based on a life system where you have a limited number of fishing rods, or based on a time system where you have a limited amount of time. I really can't remember which one it is, so I think the best way to solve this is with a coin flip. If it lands on heads, I'll do the life system, and if it lands on tails, I'll do the time system. Alright, life system it is. Okay, so the game is completely done now, and I've gone ahead and uploaded it to my itch page, link in the description. But the video isn't over yet. Now we get to do the fun bit and compare my version to the original version, and find out if I have a memory like a fish or like a shark. I don't know why I said that. That doesn't make any sense. Let's just move on to comparing the versions. I found the original textures for the game on a wiki page, so let's start by comparing the fish sprites. I think I did a pretty okay job with this. It looks quite similar to the original, and I'm definitely glad I went with the gold version. I'd rate it 8 out of 10. I don't think the shark went as well, but I still think it's okay. It doesn't look that similar to the original, but at least it conveys what I was trying to get at. I would rate it, I don't know, maybe a 6 out of 10. For the boot, I mean it's a boot. I don't know what else to say about it. It looks like a super simplified version of the original. The colours were pretty close, so I'd rate it a 7 out of 10. I think the background is the best piece of art in this entire project. I think it's super close to the original, and I think it looks super clean. I really like it, so I'll give it a 9 out of 10. The fishing rod is just a stick, so 3 out of 10. This one honestly sucks. The penguin sprite is also pretty shit. Actually, it's mega shit. 2 out of 10. Alright, I think that's all the artwork I did, so let's move on and compare the gameplay. When the games are side by side like this, they actually look fairly similar, which I'm very happy with. But for some reason, I remember the game being square, so I made it a square when it's actually meant to be rectangle. The mechanic of actually hooking the fish seems to be the same, but the spawning seems to be a little off. The timings are a fair bit off, everything seems to spawn a lot slower in the original, and I don't think boots or sharks start spawning until a certain point in the game. Also, when you catch a fish in the original, you get this cool graphic that updates each time instead of the fish counter. The game, however, does use a life system, so the conflict from earlier chose the right option. It isn't quite the same because instead of using fishing rods as the lives, it uses cans of worms. This makes no difference to the actual gameplay though, as it still works exactly the same. I actually completely forgot about the worms on the end of the hook, so my version doesn't have these. Talking about things that my version doesn't have, there's actually a couple of other things that I forgot about. For example, the barrel, which is basically a reskin of the boot with a bigger hitbox, or the jellyfish that shocks the fishing line if you hit them. Probably the biggest feature that I forgot about was the one that actually lets you complete the game. After you've caught a certain number of fish, this big red boy will show up and you can catch it to end the game. It even has a cool animation to go with it. Even if you don't catch it, I think the game will still end, which isn't the case with my version. In my version, as long as you don't run out of lives, you could technically play forever. It's not a perfect replica, but it's close enough and I'm happy with it. This was a pretty fun experience, so if you want me to make more videos like this, please give me some ideas in the comments. I'll see you next time.